On this week's episode of Comics Controllers, we talk about the new comic Shelter. We also talk about how the word candy has just been trademarked when it comes to video games. And finally, we end the show with a question from the viewer. All that and more on this, episode 7, King of Candy. Welcome back to another episode of Comics in Control. As always, I'm Kyle, joined with my co-host Steven.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good, Steven. So this week, why don't you start us off with what we're going to talk about comics related?
A comic that I've been very interested in for a while and trying to get others to read is Sheltered by Ed Brisson and Johnny Christmas. Both of them are co-creators on the comic. Brisson handles the writing duties, and Johnny Christmas is a very talented artist that has a kind of interesting style for this one. It's very pale. There's a kind of a skewed canvas where everything is bland. It works really nice, especially when it incorporates blood into the mix, and there's a lot of that going on in this comic.
Yeah, so for those out there who haven't read Sheltered, basically the concept of it is there is a group of people who have pulled away from society, and they live kind of off in this little commune. And in this commune, basically, they've got trailers, and they have weapon stockpiles and food stockpiles and stuff like that because they don't want the government to come take their guns and stuff along those lines.
They're doomsday preppers, right?
Yeah, basically they're prepared for the end of the world, but they're also they're anti-government because they talk about how they're afraid of the government coming constantly too.
Yep.
So they're preparing for that, to stand off against them.
Right. In multiple scenes, you'll see some of them listening to what's called the Preppers Podcast or something like that, where it's talking about different elements that you just mentioned and also telling kind of interesting advice on what to do, once the apocalypse comes and how to live off the land. And what's great about that is they actually have in the extra sections of the comic where the bonus pages are, they have articles from that podcast and from that website talking about that kind of stuff. And it makes for interesting reading after the comic is over. Yeah.
And so it's not just like adults, though. There are actual families out here in this area. And so, spoiler alert, because otherwise we can't really talk about the comic.
Right.
But some of the kids get together, and one of the kids basically leads them into believing that there's this big catastrophe that's going to happen, and that there's not enough food in their commune for them all to survive with the parents and everything. So he just basically convinces all the kids to kill their parents. Except for there's a couple who aren't behind it. But yeah, they kill all the parents, and they're living out there in this little commune. And quickly, the society that they've set up out there, within days almost, starts to collapse. And that's kind of what you are seeing in the first 5 or so issues of it, is them going through this procedure, setting it up, and then it starting to collapse, and the problems inherent within it. I don't know. I like it. I think it's a pretty good series.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I think we've talked about this a little bit beforehand, but it's there's a lot of political stuff in it.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, it's very political. Because these are a bunch of people who are getting away from the government, because they don't trust them. Yeah. And they're hiding out here from them. And then these kids are basically are paranoid like their parents. And so when this one kid comes up with this crazy idea, they all think it seems legit, and they get behind him on it.
Right. And it's very heavy politically in the first 2 issues, and I would say after that it becomes a lot more about the kids and them dealing with each other and how even their kind of society that they're trying to create is breaking down afterwards, while all the stuff is going on with Victoria and Haley, because like you said, they weren't down with the idea, and they didn't include Victoria on it because she was newer. And
they're the 2 kids that basically were not involved in the whole gonna kill our parents thing. And so they go into hiding in one of the people's shelters, and they're locked away with food so they can not be killed by these other kids.
Right. And it's really interesting. I think the best part of the comic to me, and one of the reasons that keeps me coming back to it, anticipating it, is the relationship between Victoria and Lucas, and watching how Lucas handles his subordinates, I guess you would say, and seeing. I think his world is, if not very soon, at least in the near future, his world is going to kind of crumble down around him. And I know that the new story arc just started, because issue 6, I believe, just came out, which is bringing in a lot of new elements. And I really enjoy it. Like I said, I've been trying to get more people to read it. I think it's a well-written comic. I like the art, and I think it has a lot of potential. It could get even better.
Yeah, and like the guy Lucas, he's the one who came up with this whole plan for them to kill their parents and everything, and the whole story behind why they should do it. And you can tell, I mean, this is really not a spoiler. Like, the moment you've read it, you can see that he has ulterior motives for why he's convinced them to do that. And it doesn't look like any of the kids know what his motives are.
Yeah,
they start to figure out that there's something more to it, but they haven't really got into that yet in the series.
Yeah, that's one thing I think that needs to be fleshed out sometime soon, is more of what we see what Lucas is trying to do, but what is his end game? What's the full goal at the end for him?
We don't want to give the end game now, because it still has about 11 issues, 12 issues, because it was supposed to be, you said 18.
I think the original plan was for it to be 18, but if it goes well, they'll probably extend it or something like that. So either way, it looks. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to stick with this one.
I hate that. I hate when something's planned to be so many issues, and then like, oh, this is really good, let's do more. No, don't do more. Just do the story. Because the problem, if you do more, is you do what happened to 30 Days of Night. You cheapen the entire thing. Like, the original 30 Days of Night was great. Everything that came afterwards was complete garbage. There was none of it that was worth reading. Like, people I know who are like, oh, I'm going to read 30 Days a Night. Should I read all of it? No. Just read the original trade from it. Don't pick up any of the other stuff. It's not good.
Yeah, and that's hard to argue.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff that I enjoy that goes further, like originally Runaways. Marvel's Runaways was only supposed to be 18 issues at first.
Yeah, but even in some of those later runs, it got really bad. It lost what it was supposed to be.
Well, I think the mistake there is when they lost Vaughn. And that's not saying that I'm not trying to promote Vaughn too much, but I think sometimes certain books need to keep their same creators, you know?
I mean,
but
yeah.
I do agree. Eventually it did kind of slack off.
It would be like if Robert Kirkman was not going to write Walking Dead. I think it would make a giant turn in a way that people didn't like. I mean, not saying that it would immediately do that, but when a new artist or new writer comes on, they immediately take a new handling of the way they want to take this series, and it changes. I think a lot of times in stuff like that, if somebody has a way that, like a set story they're going to tell, and it's going to go so many issues, they should just let it go, and when it's done, be done. I mean, an example of it being done is Transmetropolitan by Warren Ellis, and I think it was Derek Robertson that did the art on it. This is old. Yeah. Same two people for all 60-something issues, 66?
Yeah, I think it was 60-plus issues. Because it was almost the exact same length of that Preacher was, and Preacher was 66.
And so they did it, and Ellis pretty much said he had a story. When the story's done, he was done. Nothing since then. I think the only thing that's come since then are other people who've done just drawn pages, but they haven't written any story. The story's over. And that's the way it should be. It ended, it's done, and it was good. Don't keep adding to it, because you're going to cheapen the entire thing when you do that.
Right.
And I hope they don't do that with Shelter, because like I said, I like it. It's good, but if it's a story that's got an ending and it ends, don't suddenly try to make more to it so you can get more money, because that's what it is. It's somebody somewhere like, well, we need more money on this. Let's keep going. Well,
now, I do agree with that, but at some points, I've heard that with smaller comic book companies, what they'll do is they'll plan an 18-issue story arc, but leave it open-ended for there to be more, because they need to see if it's worth continuing to print it. And in some cases, and I'm not arguing that Shelter is one of these cases, but in some cases what I think they do is they give the writer and, the creators of the book, they give them a set number of issues. It's like, we're guaranteeing you this many issues, but when we get to this issue, we're going to have to see how the sales are, or see how, what's going on with it, to determine if we want to give you any more. And I think they have to do that in some of the smaller companies to make sure that they're going to make their money's worth, because you can have more flops in a bigger company, basically.
Well, yeah, and they can't support like an ongoing series blindly, not knowing if it's going to actually be worth it. I understand that, but not everything has to be ongoing. If you've written something, that'd be like somebody writes a book that's just, this is it, it's over at the end, and then they're like, but we need another book. We're going to force you to write another one, and then another one, and another one. Stuff. Lord of the Rings. That's really what Lord of the Rings was. He wrote The Hobbit, and he was done. And they're like, it's like, well, I'm going to write this other story. It has nothing to do with hobbits. They're like, but people want more hobbits. He's like, okay, I guess I'll write some Hobbit book. And so he did. He wrote Lord of the Rings.
Right. There's a lot of great examples of that. Several different stories I can think of where, a great one is Sherlock Holmes. He killed off the character, and there was such a fan outcry that he brought the character back.
I guess there's the alternative. Sometimes the writer dies and they keep making books after their death, like V.C. Andrews and Louis L'Amour. I always love telling people about that, and I'm pretty sure Tom Clancy's the same way. They were still making books with his name on it when he was alive. He had sold the rights to his name because he didn't want to write books anymore, basically.
Right.
Or he couldn't write them at the pace that they needed them.
Right. I think part of that was pacing.
So, but that's just a pet peeve of mine. If a story, another example would be like with The Boys. Okay, The Boys was something that very much had a story that was going to be told, and when that story was over, they were done with it. Okay, they pulled some things in the middle. They had some little mini series that popped up in the middle. That's fine. That explains stuff. Yeah, they were okay. They're explaining things that you don't have time to explain in this comic that's set to be 60 issues or however many it was. I think it was about 62.
It ended up being 72.
Was it? Okay.
It was originally supposed to be 69 from what I read, and then he said that he needed extra issues to finish everything out, so it was 72.
And so, it's over. They don't need to do more for it. To me, some of those that do that are the best to me. Like, Why the Last Man? It was over. There doesn't need to be more. When it ended, it ended. It had a conclusion. Things like that.
I certainly agree with you. And of all the pet peeves, that's not a bad one to have. It's very true. There are times when, you read a great X-Men story or you read a great Batman story and you realize, well, this kind of sucks because I know next time around it's probably not going to be as good as this, and,
Yeah.
It should have ended, but it's never going to.
Yeah. I understand why they have to do it in the smaller companies, but I just think they need to also recognize that maybe the smaller companies, you don't have to have these ongoing series, but you just have to have more talent to create these good stories that when they are there, they bring people back.
Yeah. That is true.
All right. So, moving now into the video game side of things. Steve, have you ever played Candy Crush Saga?
I had to for work once. It was one time, and I will probably never touch it again. We are encouraged at the place I work because one of the devices that I sell has apps on it. And so we are encouraged to try out these apps. So
you can demonstrate them.
Right, and you know what you're talking about. And because Candy Crush is such a giant app in the field, I wanted to know what I was talking about when I told somebody, hey, it has Candy Crush on it.
Okay. Well, so Candy Crush Saga, basically, this past week, the company that owns them called King, in the EU, got the word candy trademarked when it comes to computer games, and also in the realm of clothing and footwear. Okay.
Yeah.
So they trademarked the word candy. So anything else that has the word candy in it that's video game related, or I guess clothing and footwear related as well, you have to get permission from King, or they have the ability to sue you in the European Union.
Yeah, I think it's that they have an ability to put a stop to it.
Yeah. There's all sorts of things they could do. Like, they could just be like, well, you can still use it, but you have to pay us, a little bit of money for each one that you sell that has the name on it. Or they could be like, nope, none of it all. Just block you off. All sorts of things. Sue you for back money. Just depends.
It's ridiculous.
It is pretty crazy that they could get a word like candy. And it's not candy spelled any weird way. It's candy spelled Candy. The normal way you would spell candy.
Exactly. If it was their own weird version of the word, Or I could understand if it was Candy Crush. If this was Candy Crush and not just the word candy, it wouldn't be a big deal.
Well, they also want to get the word Saga trademarked.
Which is, again, I don't... What about... I know that they're still working on their U.S. claims, but what about the comic Saga? Or what about, there's several things with that word.
That would be okay. That's a comic. They want to get it trademarked for computer games and clothing and footwear.
You're right. It's not... Okay, well...
What about the game like Banner Saga that just came out?
I was just about to mention that.
That would probably mean that they would have to get permission to use that or get sued or pay money to them for using it.
It's ridiculous.
It is.
It would be one thing if you were like, okay, we got the word Saga trademarked, so you can't call your game just Saga. You can't call your game the word Saga. Your game is called Banner Saga. It's not the same.
Well, something similar to this was brought up, I think last year when Mojang, the company that makes Minecraft, they released this kind of like card game online called Scrolls. Well, Bethesda, who owns Elder Scrolls, said that they were going to they were going to sue them or something for using the word Scrolls, or they were going to try to get it trademarked, but it fell through. Nothing ever came of it because they were like, they're not even the same game. I could see if basically they made an Elder Scrolls ripoff, but they're nothing alike.
Exactly, yeah.
And how are you just going to trademark this single word? It's not even a logo. It'd be one thing if they want to trademark. We're trademarking Elder Scrolls. Okay, that's legit. Because I had to look this up, but the difference in like a trademark and a copyright is a copyright is basically saying I own the rights to this song, this art, this music, this book, this literature, drama, whatever. You own the rights to that. So if somebody else wants to sell that or produce that, they have to come to you for permission or owe you money, one of the two, something like that. Trademark, though, is something you get on like a logo or an icon. So the Google logo would be trademarked. The Apple logo is trademarked. I believe Mickey Mouse is trademarked because that's Disney's thing. Yeah. That's what you would trademark. So they want to trademark this word. So basically, every time you would put this word in something, then you would owe them money. That's computer or clothing and footwear related, which those last two are odd.
I mean...
The only thing I can think is if it comes down to the clothing and footwear related that relates to Candy Crush, and then they want that so people can't make fake Candy Crush stuff and they can sue them. That's legit.
Yeah, it's a merchandising thing, and I don't know. It's still... This whole situation just really annoys me. I know you and I, before, have discussed how messed up copyright laws are.
Uh-huh. Oh, they're out of control.
But it just makes me think that these major companies, like Bethesda, from the situation you mentioned earlier, they have a guy somewhere that his whole job is to think, how can we get more money with trademarks and copyrights?
They do. They have entire litigation departments dedicated to this stuff.
I hate that person.
I mean, they're not even as bad as places like Apple or Google or HP who own patents. Now, that is the big problem.
Yeah, patents are big.
And so, like, there are whole companies designed to just sue people for patents. It's like, well, we have the patent on this, blah, blah, blah. They're called patent trolls. They are an epic problem that there's nothing being done about.
Who was it that tried to patent the swipe on phones?
Oh, not tried. They did. Apple,
are you serious?
Apple patented the swipe function on their products, like just swiping to the one direction to do stuff. That's why on Android devices, you can't just you can make like a swipe pattern to unlock the phone, but it can't just be a normal swipe across because that's Apple's. It has to be some pattern. Apple tried to patent rounded corners.
Yeah, I remember that. I wanted to say that I had faith that the American courts would put a stop to this idiocy, but I guess I don't.
It's not the courts. The courts are doing what they can, but the problem is they're so backlogged with all these stupid patent and copyright claims that they're going through them slowly. The actual problem is the patent system. It is actually set up for this kind of stuff to happen.
Right.
Until Congress does something about it and gets these laws changed, it's just going to keep going. And it will never happen because companies like the laws the way they are, because that gives them the ability to crush innovation. It's like, oh, God, no, this guy's doing something. Listen, We patented rounded corners 2 years ago. That thing's got rounded corners. We're going to put an injunction on it so it can't be sold in the country. I mean, that's what Apple does. Some places would be like, we'll make a deal and we'll just pay you some of the money for it that we're making. Apple just shuts you down. They just basically walk in there, kick you in the face, take everything you got, and lock it up in a safe and say, you can't sell this. Yeah. That's what they want. They want to destroy the market. Other places just want to make money on everybody. That's what like Microsoft does.
I mean, Apple's almost cornering the market as it is, and this gives them that, hold on it.
Yeah. And going actually back more to the actual Candy Crush thing, what makes me even more angry, not even the fact they're trademarking the word candy, it's the fact that Candy Crush Saga is basically Bejeweled. So they copied another game that's been around forever, put some weird little cutesy thing on top of it, and now they're like, oh, well, this is our product, and we don't want anybody to do anything like it. You stole it to begin with.
And I'm sure there's somebody out there that would say, well, Bejeweled should have gotten to this first. To doing all the copywriting and everything.
Well, yeah, that's what copyright stuff comes down to, is it's like, you either defend it or you don't. If you defend it, that makes it where people are less likely to do stuff like this. But the moment you stop defending it, it shows that it's not as big a concern. And that stands up in court. And courts will be like, well, I mean, you've let these other people get away with it. Why just these guys? Is it because they're making money? Well, yeah. Well, sorry, we can't let that go through like that. You've pretty much just ignored your copyright on this or your claim to it. So, yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's stupid that this happened. And it's only happened in the European Union so far. They're still waiting in the U.S. Maybe the U.S. Patent system will tell them, hell no.
Yeah, and I understand, like, some people keep making jokes about what all it's going to affect, but as we discussed, they're only trying it in, computers and apparently clothing.
But what about, like, Candyland? So somebody, say Hasbro, there's an electronic version of Candyland. I've seen it.
Right.
Is that suddenly mean that Candyland, that is a game that has been around since the 60s, is now, they can't do it because this company that's been around for probably 2-3 years making a game that they stole from somebody else, they just put a new skin on, copyrighted or patent or trademarked the word candy?
Well, an intelligent person would tell you no, that it shouldn't affect them, but
now we're involved in the U.S. government and the legal system, so the answer is yes. They're out of business. Shut the doors, Hasbro.
Your fault for not doing this earlier.
Yeah. Silly you. You should have also copyrighted the word land. Everything has land in it. You don't have to pay Hasbro for the rights to use, so they trademarked it. Somebody I know said we should trademark the word trademark.
Right.
Or we should actually trademark the symbol, TM. We should trademark that TM symbol. So every company that's trademarked and uses that has to pay us money because we own the trademark to trademark.
That's the idea. That'll make you some money quick.
If you're out there and you think that's a good idea, I'll open a PayPal account. We can start dumping money in it to get this done because I think it is. And we could split it because that would be amazing. We just trademark the trademark. And then we can also trademark the copyright symbol too. So every time somebody gets something copyrighted, like, they have to pay us money to use the symbol. Otherwise,
Do we know, or do we have any idea how much they're going to have to pay each year or cycle or whatever it is to keep candy trademarked?
I don't think you have to once you've paid the initial stuff to get it done. I don't know how all that works. It's crazy, and it works differently in the EU than it does in America.
Right?
Because the EU, at least with patents, I don't know with trademarks and copyright, they have these things called the FRAND laws, and what they do is, if in the EU, or even in America, if you have a product that you make that has some kind of innovative technology, and they feel that technology, if allowed by other companies to use it, could help just recreate the environment, or redo that whole field, you have to license it to them. You do not have a choice. Now, you can't give it to them for free. You can still request something, but it has to be a reasonable price. So, like, Apple couldn't just be like, we created this new kind of technology. It's $1 million for every device that you put it on. No, it has to be something that's within reasonable situation. But that's not like that in America. They don't have to license anything.
Yeah.
But
well, that's depressing. On to something else.
All right, so from something depressing to something awesome, we had our first listener question sent in. Okay, so this comes from Ulysses. He says, "Hey guys, big fan of the podcast, and I wanted to ask you guys, what are your thoughts on this year's list of comic book movies?" Okay, he has a couple questions, so we'll hit that one first. Okay. So, what are our thoughts on this list, this year's list of comic book movies? So, Steven compiled a list of ones that we know are coming out this year, and what I'm going to do is we're going to go through it, and we're going to give it a yay or a nay. Okay, and then we'll elaborate a little bit more in the end.
Okay.
All right. So first we have 300: Rise of an Empire.
Nay.
Nay. Yeah. Flush. Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yay.
Yay. The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Nay.
Yay.
We'll really?
Have to talk about
Okay.
We'll have to talk about that. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Nay.
Yay.
X-Men: Days of Future Past. Yay.
Yay.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Undecided.
Ah. And Sin City: A Dame to Kill For. Yay.
Yay. Yeah.
All right. So we're in agreement on 300, Captain America, and Sin City.
Yeah, which I really do think Captain America is going to be really good, and I hope Sin City is going to be really good, but I have no hope for 300.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, the original 300 movie was okay. It was more of like, it's that movie that all the girls wanted to go see. It's that comic movie all the girls wanted to see, basically. Oh, yeah. That's that movie, The Men in the Underwear? Yeah, I want to go see that.
And that's the movie where I decided Gerard Butler was my new hero for getting in shape that quick.
Yeah. But, and I think Winter Soldier is going to be really good. And Sin City: A Dame to Kill For, I hope will be good.
Right.
Now,
fingers crossed.
Is Rodriguez back on that?
Yeah.
Okay, and is it also doing other stories from Sin City that Miller had written? Because they only had 3 in the first movie, but there were 6 total graphic novels.
Right.
Or 7, and 1 was short stories.
From what I read, he wrote some new material that that will be added. So.
Okay, that's good. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I really enjoyed that.
I love the first one.
I'd wish the thing they tried to do with the Spirit was as good when they did it.
Yes.
But
that could have been a great movie. It really could have been.
It was okay, but it could have been better. All right, so
The Amazing Spider-Man. We have to discuss this because
I liked the first one.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I actually liked that movie.
I was not a fan, and I'm not saying it was horrible. Please don't misunderstand me. I know some people hated it. I didn't hate it. I just didn't like it more than the Raimi ones. And I'm not even saying the Raimi ones are great, but I didn't like the way the lizard looked. I like how he looks in the comic and the cartoons where he's more of a lizard, because in the first movie, they made him have an almost human-like face, but then the rest of his body was lizard-like, and he spoke pretty normal. Like I like it when he speaks with the hiss, but he's saying intelligent things. I thought it's a great contrast for the character. And it's not the actor's fault. The actor who played the lizard did fine. He did as well as he could have. I hated the crane scene. The crane scene at the end. I know every Spider-Man movie apparently has to have this, like, let's get New York to rally around Spider-Man, but I don't know.
All right, so let's put it like this. But I just realized in that short time you were talking about that movie, I don't remember any of that stuff. I literally don't remember. I was like, crane. There was a crane in that movie? What was the crane scene? I can't remember it. I was like, I don't remember his face. I don't remember the lizard talking.
He ran out of webbing, and so they lined up all the cranes.
Oh, I do remember that now.
Because he had saved that guy's kid earlier in the movie. And the scene with the kid was fine, but the later scene I hated.
Okay, I do remember that now. Okay. I mean, I didn't mind that. That's one of the things I always kind of liked was with Spider-Man. They've tried to do is that, like, while a lot of people don't like him, he is like a hero for New York City. He's just like a normal dude doing this. I mean, he's not normal, but he's just like an average guy going out there doing this stuff, saving the city. He's not like going off into space or fighting giant aliens or anything like that. He's just fighting dudes in weird costumes like him with weird powers, saving normal people. And that's why the city supports him.
Yeah, something they point out really well in the comics, especially lately, is that he is always there. Like, if you live in New York, there's a good chance you've seen Spider-Man stop a crime or something.
Yeah.
Because he's always out there on the street busting his ass.
Yeah, and, like, I thought Amazing Spider-Man was okay. I didn't think it was better than, like, Spider-Man 2. Like, I think that was the best of the Raimi movies.
Yes,
but it was better than Spider-Man
the best. 1. That was the best of the Raimi movies.
But, yeah, it was better than Spider-Man 1 and way better than Spider-Man 3. That movie was the worst.
Yeah. I'm really hoping I want to see Jamie Foxx and who's the guy playing the Rhino?
Now,
It's
I don't know.
Paul Giamatti.
This is my thing with I'm like, I just feel like there's too many villains in this movie.
Right,
I mean,
because the Green Goblin is also in there.
But
I
like to reserve judgment. I don't know. I haven't been keeping up with it. Like, I've found that for me to enjoy comic movies, the best way is to just not pay attention. Don't keep up with them. And then when they come out, I'll go see it. I'm like, oh, wow, that was way better than I expected it to be. Because I didn't have any expectations.
You might have the right idea there.
That's why I like the Superman movies so much. Because I went in there expecting nothing. I went in there expecting it to be as bad as the last one.
Right.
And I was blown away because it was, like, good.
Yeah. I hope it's good. That's all I can really say is I want it to be good, but I was not a fan of the first one, so I don't want to get my hopes up.
All right. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
All right. So let me go ahead and say something first. Is this the one that's Michael Bay is on?
Yes, this is the one
that's
that
why
Michael Bay is on.
It's a nay because of that. Because Michael Bay is terrible. He's like the worst director next to M. Night Shyamalan. Shyamalan Ding Dong, or whatever his name is.
Okay. Well, I'm at least glad to see that you put someone under Michael Bay, and he's not the bottom of the list. Okay. No, I can't blame you for saying no.
He's just gonna ruin another franchise, like he did in Transformers. That's why I just don't get it. Like, why even let him touch something? He's the touch of death. Or
his
who's
movies
Uwe
make
Boll?
money. Yeah,
Uwe Boll was a guy who it's like if you put him on something, he was just going to destroy it. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to make money because it's Michael Bay. It doesn't mean they're good.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. You asked the question, and I'm telling you if you're the movie company, from your standpoint, Michael Bay's films make money. And there are a lot of people out there who like those Transformers movies. And I think people are always like, oh, they're horrible. But seriously, maybe y'all don't realize how many people out there loved those movies.
I think the best way to sum up the Transformers movies was a quote from my father. So I remember seeing the first one, and he had seen it separately, and he was like, that wasn't a bad movie. He didn't know anything about the Transformers, you know?
Okay.
And he was like, that wasn't a bad movie. I'm like, yeah, the first one was okay. So all of my family's birthdays are around the same time, so like Transformers 2, we just went like, let's go see it as a group. Okay, so we did. Transformers 2 is bad.
It's the worst one. Transformers 2 is the worst one of the three movies, and the third one was not that bad.
Okay, so, and that movie's loud, like
that
explosions.
Is a loud, yeah.
At the end of the movie, I asked my dad, what did he think? He's like, well, I fell asleep. I'm like, you fell asleep? How did you fall asleep during that thing? Was so loud. He's like, I don't know. All I know is that I fell asleep and Optimus Prime was alive. I woke up and he was coming back to life. So I guess he died at some point. I was like, that's pretty much what I felt, because that's all I remember too. That and the racist robots.
the two Mexican buses, they become the bus or whatever.
Whatever they were.
Yeah.
But I never watched any more of those.
Okay, the second one is the worst one. And for a straight up popcorn movie, the third one was really good, because the whole third act is just a giant ongoing fight scene. But it's a really good ongoing fight scene.
But that's what I expect of Ninja Turtles. And the other thing is, like, I never really was a Transformers fan. Like, I didn't really watch the cartoon. I didn't really read any of the comics.
Sure.
But I was a huge Ninja Turtles fan.
Right.
And I don't... those other movies, like, I've kind of rewatched parts of them. They're bad. Like, they're not good movies.
The first one is great, man.
The first one's okay. The second one and the third one, they were like...
The second one's good until Super Shredder.
Yeah, but I don't want... Who is played by...
Kevin Nash.
Yeah, Kevin Nash from wrestling.
Yeah. But, he was also the Russian in the Punisher movie. He's done a lot of comic book
He would have been Sabretooth, but he wouldn't get in shape for it.
Yeah.
But I don't put any stock in it. Now, if people come back to me and they're like, wow, it's really good, I'll probably watch it when it's like out on DVD, but I will not go see it in the theater.
Here's my argument. I'm going to go see it. I'm going to pay the money to go see the movie because I'm a giant Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan. I own the entire cartoon series, and when I was a kid, I used to own every toy that they made for that series until they got to Series 4 or whatever it was. But I'm not going to be shocked if it's horrible. But I'm one of those people that when I go see a movie based off a comic book, a TV show, whatever, I separate it. Oh God, Spider-Man did this instead of this. That's not going to kill me. It's just whether it's good or not. And I'm not saying this is going to be good, but I want it to be.
Well, here's my thing: is it's like I don't have like I tell people too, like I like when I go to see these movies, I go in there with no expectations usually, and the other thing is like I automatically assume that it's a different universe than the comic book. It's not going to be exactly the same. But some of the stuff I heard they wanted to do with this, I was like, that is not even the same concept of what the Ninja Turtles are. He'd be like, hey guys, so this whole thing about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I was thinking, why don't we just turn them into ducks that are samurais? That's not even the same comic. What are you doing?
Well, a lot of people got upset about some of that stuff, and some of it I agreed with, and some of it I didn't. Like one thing, is the alien thing, which I'm not even sure if that's still in there because they've rewritten the script twice now. But here's the thing: in the comics, the ooze that turns them into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was designed by an Ultron, which is part of Krang's race, and they are aliens. So the influence and the idea was there.
But why don't you just use that idea? It's some mysterious ooze. You don't have to explain it. That's some mysterious ooze, period.
I'm just saying I'm going to give it a chance. And it's probably going to be horrible. It's probably going to be wretched. But it's probably going to be horrible,
and they'll probably do 2 more of them because it's Michael Bay. People will go see it. And all the turtle shells are going to explode all the time. It's just going to be a bunch of explosions. And people running from explosions. It's going to be so bad. I hate Michael Bay. I hate him so much. It's like, Kyle, you're given the chance to cut off some people's... Michael Bay's hands are gone. Can his tongue come with it? Can I just... like a hand... So he can't write and he can't talk. I don't want it. It's gone.
Look, that man is under a lot of pressure. You saw
Chris
how
Claremont
he screwed up his speech at, CES?
No, I didn't pay attention.
He tried to... Samsung hired him to say some stuff for their new TVs. And they were using some of his footage from Transformers 4 to show off these new high-quality televisions. And the teleprompter went black, and he lost it. He had, a small panic attack or whatever. And so the other guy who's hosting the thing is trying to help him through it, to wing it. And Michael Bay's just like, nope, I'm sorry, and just walks off stage. And so the other guy handles it perfectly. He's just like, let's give it up for Michael Bay, everybody. Clap.
Whatever.
Yeah. All right, so X-Men Days of Future Past.
I know we're both in agreement.
We are. I just want to say that I really don't know if it's going to be as good as the first one. So, I want it to be.
Yeah, I want it to too. But it might have the same problem as the third movie did, where it was just like, let's grab as many mutants as we can and force them into one movie.
Yeah, that's probably going to be a big issue, and as long as it's better than X-Men 3, I'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. X-Men First Class, when I went into it, I was like, this is going to be bad. This is going to be really bad. I loved it. It was
loved it.
But that was the thing. It was really campy. But it was 60s. It makes sense. Right. This one's a lot more serious looking.
That movie, when it came out, was like one of my surprises for that summer. It was one of the movies I'll admit, I just went to it because it had X-Men in the title, and I hadn't seen a good X-Men or Marvel movie in a while, and I was like, I'm going to go watch it. And I loved it. So I'm hoping this one's good. And speaking of Marvel, would you please tell me why you're excited for Guardians of the Galaxy? I
like Guardians of the Galaxy. I think if written well, if acted well, which there's a lot of good actors in it, it's, to me, Guardians of the Galaxy is like one of the best way of summing it up is like it'd be like a space buddy cop movie, where it's like you've got, I don't even remember what all characters are in it other than like Groot,
Star-Lord, Gamora.
Yeah,
Garone.
Drax.
Yeah.
And Rocket Raccoon.
Rocket Raccoon, of course.
Yeah, and so it's based like it's a space buddy cop movie. You've got Star-Lord, who's like the guy who's trying to work hard. You got Rocket Raccoon, who's like the comedy relief. You got Drax, like the big dumb guy. You got Gamora's going to be like the hot, badass chick. And then you've got Groot, whose just Groot.
Yeah.
Voiced by Vin Diesel.
There's a lot of star power behind this one because
Michael Rooker's in there, too.
Yeah, Michael Rooker. Zoe Saldana is playing Gamora.
Benicio del Toro plays the Collector.
The Collector. Batista from the WWE is Drax. Wasn't Bradley Cooper the voice of Rocket Raccoon?
Correct.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people behind it. I want this to be good, and I'll probably go see it. I just probably won't go see this one like opening day. I'll wait and read a review or something.
Yeah, I never go on opening day, but I mean, I'll see that in the theater. But when they started the newer Guardians of the Galaxy comic, I remember reading it, and I liked it. And I mean, like, what was it that led to it? It wasn't Annihilation Wave. It was something else. Some other event had led to it to happen right before that. And the thing is, with Marvel space stuff, you either love it or hate it. There's no in between on it, You either are really into the Thanos and Adam Warlock and Drax and Gamora and all those people, or you just ignore it and just stay on Earth.
Are you still reading it currently?
I have it to read to get caught up on the new stuff that Bendis was doing.
Right. I heard the Bendis stuff was pretty good.
But I haven't read it yet. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it has potential to be good, and it has potential to open people to a part of Marvel that they might not know. Like, that's the thing with the Avengers stuff. Everybody knows Thor and Captain America and Iron Man and all these people, and everybody knows the X-Men and Spider-Man. But as the average person who doesn't read comic books, hey, do you know who Rocket Raccoon is? Who? Yeah, that's what you're going to get. Star-Lord? Who? Yeah. They don't know him. And so this has a chance to open up that whole section, which to me is what Marvel's going to have to start doing, because it's either that or you're going to start relaunching all these series. Because another Iron Man, you have to relaunch it. But who's going to be Iron Man after who's after Robert Downey Jr.?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So,
yeah. I take it you saw that they were also crossing over with all new X-Men soon?
Yeah, I heard about that. Right. I think, in fact, the last issue it happened.
Oh, okay. So that should be interesting.
Yeah. All right, so those are the movies. Let's see. Ulysses also said, what are our thoughts on Superman, Batman being pushed back?
It's probably for the better.
Yeah. Whatever it takes to push it back so it's going to be good is what I want. Like, I think Avengers got pushed back a lot.
It got pushed back a couple of times, and I know they had a bunch of rewrites, and I'm okay with any movie that I actually want to see, as long as it's not like a ridiculous time. Like, we pushed it back 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
But they pushed it back to 2016. It's 1 year, and if that 1 year, gives them time to work on the script or work on whatever they need to work on to make sure it's at least as good as Man of Steel, I'm okay.
Yeah, especially with two characters like Superman, Batman, because one is, these are your two flagship characters, really, of your universe, so you want this to be done right. Two, this is going to be what spawns off a new series of Batman movies, so you want to make sure that part's done right. And three, I want to say I heard that Wonder Woman's supposed to be in there, too, because they just announced somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Something Godell.
Gal Gadot.
Yeah, Gal Gadot, that's it. They announced her as Wonder Woman in this movie also, which means that that's probably where they're going to spawn Wonder Woman from, so you want that to be good.
Right.
And then it's got to be, so many things have to be perfect for this. Plus, I think that summer's also when the next 2015 is when the next Avengers was supposed to come out, along with the new Star Wars movie supposed to start up.
Right.
So it totally makes sense to move it to 2016.
Well, Star Wars apparently also got pushed back.
Okay.
Because if nothing had gotten pushed back, 2015 was going to be a crazy movie year.
Yeah, 2015 was going to be the go sleep in the theater for 3 months.
Right. Just a quick note, not only Wonder Woman, because they just announced that they signed her to a 2 or 3 movie deal, which will include, the one we're discussing, but also the rumor has it that The Flash, because they're getting ready to start his new TV series, is supposed to make a small cameo in the film as well.
So, yeah, with all those characters in there, and then eventually trying to probably build up to a Justice League movie from it, totally makes sense that they want to push it back and make sure everything's perfect. Because if you rush it too much, you're just going to get garbage.
Right.
Which they've had plenty of DC garbage in the past, so. Or scrapped it before it even went out.
Right, that's true.
All right, and he's got one last question that says, also, which video game franchise do you feel has the best potential for a big screen adaptation? Thanks, guys. Keep up the great work.
Thanks, Ulysses. So, there are a couple that, are kind of obvious. Like, a lot of people say they want to see an Uncharted movie. Well, that game...
Give me your two. Give me your two.
Well, Uncharted already looks like a movie, so I'm not going to say that one. Because of the recent reboot for Tomb Raider, I actually think it might be time to reboot the Tomb Raider movie franchise. Because I think they have a really good jumping off point now. You would do a movie that takes place directly after the first game, or do a movie that does the story of the first game. I think it'd be great. And my other one, I've always wanted to see a well-done, big-budget version of BioShock.
So would you want, like, the original BioShock, or would you want, like, Infinite?
As much as I love Infinite, I love BioShock Infinite, I like the visual aspect of Rapture, and I would rather see something that took place in Rapture.
Fair enough. I think those are both good choices.
What about you?
I'd like to see Candy Crush Saga the movie.
No, you wouldn't.
No.
They're going to do it anyway, so...
I mean, they were talking about this earlier, before the podcast, the Angry Birds the movie. Who cares?
I'm sure kids will love it.
I hope it should be like a 10-minute cartoon. That may be acceptable, but still. I don't know, like... I've never played Uncharted, but the story of it sounds very interesting. I think it probably would be a good movie because it's designed that way. It'd be like Indiana Jones.
I was about to say it's Indiana Jones, but a little bit more updated and with a lot more. It's a little bit grittier.
You know what I think would be an awesome gritty 80s style? I would love to see Hotline Miami the movie.
Hell yeah. I'm down for that.
Rated X. Oh my God. I need money to make this movie because it just hit me. It needs to be filmed and like kind of has that campiness of like what they do with Machete and like Hobo with the Shotgun, if you've ever seen that movie.
I love it, yeah.
It would be over the top, ridiculous gore, but filmed really campy like they did in the 70s and 80s, in the early 80s. That would be great for Hotline Miami the movie.
How would you incorporate the masks? The different masks?
Oh man, I don't know. It would probably come up as like visions of him seeing people in these masks talking to him.
And you have to change the ending, right? I mean, have you beaten the game?
Yeah. It would have to be different.
You can't do that ending. It'd be funny, but you can't do that ending.
Hotline Miami the movie, I think would be awesome. And then maybe like Far Cry Blood Dragon the movie, because that would be total 80s kickback would be so awesome.
That would be fun, but we would have to ignore that Uwe Boll already did Far Cry the movie.
Whoa, what?
Uwe Boll did a version of Far Cry as a movie.
Mind blown. I didn't even know that. I don't need to see it. I'm assuming it was the worst thing ever because everything he does, it's like progressively worse than the previous.
He has one really good film, and it's his only film that is not based off of another franchise, of a video game or whatever franchise. And I'm so sorry, I can't remember the name of it right now. It's like called Berserk or Damaged or something like that. But it's about the guy who goes nuts and goes on a killing spree, and it's all in his head.
I've never heard it or seen it.
I saw it. It was on Netflix for a while. It's going to bother me on the title. No, it's one of his earlier films, but it's his best film. It's a good. It is a. I know people are not going to believe me. It's a good Uwe Boll movie. Because he just recently did one called Assault on Wall Street, and it's basically almost the exact same movie but updated. But with a slightly different premise because his original one takes place somewhere in Europe, and this one's Wall Street. But he made one really good movie.
Well, there you go. So I think, man, I really need funding for my Hotline Miami movie right now because I'm just like thinking of so many awesome things.
I'll help promote it.
That's the last thing. I don't need another thing on my plate like that. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Comics and Controllers. So if you have questions you want to ask or any comments you want to make on what we've talked about, you can send them to us at comicsandcontrollers@gmail.com. If you want to follow me, you can find me on Twitter @ZombieJesus here. Where can they find you, Stephen?
On Twitter @StephenWilds.
There you go. So until next time, I'm Kyle.
I'm Steven.
You guys have a good one.